Because the problem that we have when we look at the wage is that conceptually, we'd like to know what's the average wage over the business cycle. Like when the economy goes into recession, what's happening to the average wage? When the economy goes into boom, what's happening to the average wage? The problem that we have is that employment itself is variable over the business cycle. So in periods of upturn in the economy, people are hired. In periods of downturn, people are fired. So therefore, if we look at the wage of people over the business cycle, the people that we look at to calculate that average wage is going to be a different set of individuals in periods of boom compared to periods of bust. Right? So when the economy is expanding, we get new people in employment who will go into our average wage calculation. Right? Then we get, when the economy is in decline, we lose some people from employment. So we're now calculating an average wage over a different set of people. So you're not calculating the average wage over the business cycle for the same group of people. Now this creates what we would call a composition bias, because the composition of the workforce is changing over the business cycle. In upturns and downturns, employment increases and decreases. So if you try and take an average wage, it's over a different group of people. Now what you actually get, therefore, is that in periods of recession, the average wage looks like it's going up. If you take the simple average wage over people who've got a job, in periods of recession, the average wage actually looks like it's going up. Now, the reason for that is that in periods of recession, the people that get fired are typically low-wage earners. Right? So recession happens, people on low wages get sacked. Well, most of the people who get sacked are on low wages. So then if you take an average over the people that are left, you're going to get an average wage which is higher than when all those people who are low income had their jobs before they got sacked. So the average wage goes up, even in a recession, not because the wage among people continually employed has increased, but because the group who you're taking the average over has lost a load of low-wage people who fall out of that average. So there's a composition bias. So you can't just measure the average wage over the business cycle because it's not tracking the same types of job and the same types of people over the business cycle, because the composition of the workforce is changing. So if you take an average wage over the business cycle, it doesn't track the typical worker. Upturns in the economy include new temporary employment, and downturns exclude new temporary unemployed people from the labour market. So if you take an average over those upturns and downturns, you get a distorted view about what's happening to the average wage, because the group of people you're taking the wage over is changing.